All right, we should be live and recording. So, hope you guys are having a great week so far. Let's go ahead and dive into this week's Q&A. This is going to be a good one. So, four really good questions that we might dive a little bit deep on. So, we'll see how into the weeds we get. Just a reminder, if you are asking questions, make sure you post them in the question post that I make every week. Or if you post them in the collective even before I make the question post, just make sure you put in there like the little filter for questions. That way I can click on the questions tab and just see, ones that you've asked. But first question is from Kristen. So I see a lot of info out there about how as we age, we need to work out and eat differently. I recently tried a program where you counted every single macro, had 2 low-carb days a week, a low macro day, 24-hour fast once a month, a day of HIIT, a day of Tabata. I'm not even really sure what Tabata is. 3 strength training days. It was just a lot and hard to do it all. I guess my question is there anything to that? And do you feel that who are perimenopausal need to eat and work out differently for it to be effective? So there's a lot in this question. So first question is, as we age, do we need to eat differently? So a lot of people think that when they get older that their metabolism really slows down. And there has been research done on this, even like some somewhat recent research in the past like 1 or 2 years that has really looked at this. Like, does your metabolism slow down as you get older? And really, there doesn't seem to be that much of your actual metabolism or metabolic rate slowing down as you get older. What usually happens is that your lifestyle just changes. Think about like when you're in college, you're like, oh my God, I could drink or eat so much and, not see any fat gain or even lose fat. And it's like, yeah, but when you're in college, you probably were walking around a lot more on campus, getting way more steps in. You probably were just more social and active with people too, going to like, even if you're someone who even like partied, went to house parties and stuff, a lot of times you're on your feet most of the time there and not doing a whole lot of sitting down. So a lot of times your lifestyle just really changes. And even like thinking about college classes, you go to a class for an hour and a half, and then get up and then have to walk 10 minutes to your next class. So it's like every hour or two, you're getting up and walking 10 minutes. And, if you have 5 classes a day, like that's an hour of walking almost just right there. So the the idea that our metabolism really slows down as we age is really just an effect of us not being as active. Unfortunately, it's not like a thing that just happens as we get older. Now, when you reach I think like 70 years old or older, then we maybe start to see a little bit of a decline in your metabolism as some of the systems in the body kind of slow down. But that's when you get, past that age versus, someone who's in their 40s, right? Like you might feel older, but you really, in the grand scheme of things, aren't, to that extent where your metabolism is actually being affected. So that's kind of number one. Like as we age, our metabolism doesn't really change that much as far as our metabolic rate. It's mostly our lifestyle and the way we live our lives that changes, and that changes, our metabolism. So that's kind of one part of your question. So the fact that you weren't able to stick with this, it felt like a lot, is completely understandable because this is a lot of stuff and a lot of weird, funky strategies, things to do that really don't have any backing in science. Like there's no science that says, oh, once you're in perimenopause, you need to do like a 24-hour fast. I think you mentioned it here. Or you need to have like specifically low carb and high carb days, or you need to pay attention to every single macro there is. Or something else you said in here too was, you have to have specifically a day of HIIT. And I would argue when you're in perimenopause, doing less of that kind of extreme crazy stuff is actually what you want to do. When it comes to the hormonal shifts that happen in perimenopause, usually the shifts that happen are things that have to do with or affect your energy levels, how well you're able to manage stress, and also your cravings. And if you are doing these like extreme 24-hour fast, you're doing this extreme high intensity cardio, you're doing this extreme like really low or low calorie diets or low carb diets, periodically and constantly like switching that up over and over, you're probably putting more stress on the body, which is actually hurting any kind of fat loss effect you might be able to have. So I've had so many clients who have come to me and they're like, once I hit menopause or perimenopause, I just could not lose weight. I couldn't, see the fat loss progress I wanted. And they were always trying something like this, like something like keto, low carb. They were trying to do all this high intensity exercise multiple times a day or really frequently. And once we took a more simple approach of, okay, we're not even going to necessarily pay attention to all macros. We are going to have just a calorie and protein range. And at most, we're going to have a very rough carb and fat range at most, just to make sure we're getting enough fat for hormone production, make sure we're getting enough carbs to fuel our performance and our energy and our workouts. But we're not going to be so strict about, okay, every single macro, we have to get it down to a gram. We're not going to work out 6, 7 days a week. We're maybe going to have 3 strength training days a week and then just a simple step goal. And we are not going to crash diet. We are going to build our calories up actually first to build our metabolism up in the priming phase that I talk about all the time. And then we're going to do fat loss phases for maybe 8 weeks at a time, maybe up to 12 weeks at the most, but usually 8 to 10 weeks, and have one maintenance day in there throughout the week to actually eat a little bit more to kind of restore our hunger and fullness signaling during the week, and then followed by a short 1 to 2 maintenance phase after that point. Like, that is the approach I've taken with all of these clients, and they have all seen awesome results and have talked about how, like, it's so crazy that, like, I tried all this stuff before and like I just wasn't seeing results. Like, and I thought it was my menopause and everything, but clearly it's not, because I've taken an approach that's actually a little bit more simple, a little bit easier, and not as extreme, and have actually seen results. So like, fat loss all comes down to short periods of eating less than what we burn, making sure we're eating enough protein, and cycling those periods of eating less than what we burn with periods of actually eating the amount your body needs to maintain its results, to kind of keep your to keep your overall stress levels as low as possible through the process, and to keep cravings and hunger as low as possible through the process too. So this approach that you described is completely unnecessary. And from my expertise, it actually hurts your potential progress, because it is going to overly stress you out physically, which is going to make it harder to recover. You're probably going to experience more water retention, more bloating, because your body is just so stressed. And then psychologically, you're going to be so stressed because you have all these like weird, funky rules of, okay, now I have these low carb days, and now I have this 24-hour fast coming up. And none of these things magically work in some weird way that cause some kind of extra fat loss, and they just run you into the ground and make things worse for you. So none of these things are things I would recommend doing. I think you mentioned strength training, so I would recommend that. But like, these extreme kind of rules, bringing calories or carbs way down in the fast and all of that, and the idea that you need to take a very unique approach because you're in perimenopause, isn't necessarily true. If you have certain symptoms, like a lot more cravings or really heavy fatigue some days because of that, then you just have to find ways to manage those symptoms, of to feel better energy wise, and to kind of manipulate that. But there isn't some like, doing something more extreme because you're in perimenopause or menopause is usually the opposite of what you want to do. You usually want to do something less extreme. That way you put your body in a less stressed state. So hopefully that makes sense, Kristen. Next question is from Liz. So Liz said, should you cater some of your food for the day to pre or post workout meals? Is it necessary if you feel like you have enough energy during your workout to fuel before or after? So do you have to like have some kind of special pre or post workout meal? So post workout, no. I used to lean into the idea that your post workout meals, we want them to be lower in fiber and lower in fat, and mostly just carbs and protein. That way we can digest them quicker and we start the recovery process faster. But that was kind of an idea that was popular, like, I don't know, a little bit longer ago. And it came from these more advanced bodybuilders who, one, already have no problem getting their fruits and vegetables in. Like, they like hit those on a regular basis, or they just aren't really concerned with their fruit and vegetable intake. Like they just don't care. They're like, I just want my body to look a certain way. I don't really care about what kind of nutrients I'm actually getting in. So that idea has been kind of pushed, I think, by that community, and also some of these bodybuilders, like advanced ones who are like professional bodybuilders who look freakish. I mean, they're all on pretty large amounts of anabolic steroids and different other hormones, chemicals, insulin, things like that, where like getting in some fast digesting carbs and protein without a whole lot of fat or fiber with it can be a good idea, at least from what I've learned with them, because of the way those, those extra supplements kind of interact with their body. And they don't want digestion to be slowed down through fat and fiber. But for the everyday person, I don't recommend their post-workout meal looking any different than any actual other like solid meal should look. So every solid meal you have should have some kind of lean protein, some kind of fruit or vegetable or both, and then some kind of healthy carbohydrate if you have like extra calories for it. And then as far as like the protein content, you probably want at least 30 grams of protein in that meal. Just it's a little bit better for muscle recovery if you're getting at least 30 grams. And that can be really much higher than that too. It could be up to 50 grams, even to 60, depending on what your protein requirements are for the day and your calorie requirements. But it's a good idea to have about 30 grams of protein at least, get some fruit or vegetable in there, and get some healthy carb. And the reason why like your post-workout meal, I don't recommend anymore it looking any different than like your other meals throughout the day that are supposed to be solid and fill you up, is because most people don't get enough fruits and vegetables. So if you tell them to, hey, don't eat fruits and vegetables for your post-workout meal because it's going to slow down digestion a little bit and your body's not going to get the nutrients to recover as quickly by a matter of like minutes or maybe an hour at the most, like of difference, they're not going to make up for that fruit or vegetable intake that they're missing in that post-workout meal in those other meals. Like they're not going to double up with their fruit and vegetables the rest of the day. So they're going to end up eating less fruits and vegetables, which is much worse for like your body composition, much worse for your health than including them in that post-workout meal and having your digestion being a little bit slower. And it's going to keep you fuller. It's not going to make any noticeable change in your body composition. Like I said, that idea that you shouldn't have fat or fiber in your post-workout meal was kind of pushed by professional bodybuilders who like are taking substances where like it might be beneficial for them to get those nutrients in right away, but for you, for a natural person, it's not making any difference. So post-workout meal should look like any other regular meal, your regular breakfast, your regular dinner, your regular lunch that you're eating to be full, satisfied, get your protein in, fruit and vegetables, and some kind of healthy carb. Now your pre-workout meal. This is where a little bit of nuance and context comes into play. If you're eating probably within a couple of hours of working out, you probably don't need to eat really anything like right before your workout. And you probably really don't need that pre-workout meal to look any different than your other meals either. Maybe make sure like it does have a decent amount of carbs in there. Like I would say, depending on your carb intake and how many calories you have, right? If you're in a fat loss phase, this might not be able to look exactly like this. But if you are eating at calorie maintenance and you have enough carbs for it, probably if you're eating about 2 hours before you work out, probably having about 30 grams of protein, probably about maybe close to 100 grams of carbs in there, at least 30 grams of protein. It can be a little bit more. And then some kind of fruit or vegetable, like making it look like a regular meal for you, but maybe making sure it has close to 100 grams of carbs or, at least anywhere from the 60 to 100 gram carb range. If you are eating more than 2 hours out from your workout, like if that's when your last main meal is, it might be beneficial to have like a quick hit of carbohydrates right before you work out. So a lot of times I'll have my breakfast at usually at like 6:30. That's usually the time I just kind of sit down and eat breakfast. And then I don't usually work out until maybe like 10 or 11. So there's about 5 hours between there. And I usually don't eat a solid meal between that time, but I do have a quick pre-workout snack usually. And that's because, it's been 2 hours plus since I last ate a meal. I probably want to get some kind of hit of carbohydrate to keep my energy levels high during the workout, to give me a little bit of boost so I can kind of push through that workout. And then I'll have a regular, full, structured meal like I described after my workout for my kind of post workout, or just I can call it lunch sometimes. So, what that pre workout snack might look like if your last actual solid meal was 2 hours plus before you trained is just some kind of quick, fast digesting carbohydrate that you're eating maybe 30 minutes before you go and start to work out. So for me, I like Pop Tarts. They are pretty low in fiber, not too high in fat, and they sit well with my stomach. They're really easy to digest for me. I feel energized for the next 1 to 2 hours after having something like that. So it really works for me. Other ideas are like a couple of Rice Krispie treats, a little bit of like sugary cereal 30 minutes before you work out. Maybe a banana is a good option for you. If you enjoy more liquid, maybe a little bit of orange juice potentially, but just be careful with that because orange juice does really spike your blood sugar pretty quickly, even faster than these other foods I'm mentioning. So you might have a little bit more of a crash in your blood sugar during your workout, depending on that. So be kind of weary of orange juice, but it is an idea. Um, Other ideas too is you could even just mix up like the Gatorade powder that you can buy in the store, or get one of those small 80-calorie Gatorades and start even just sipping on that as you're warming up. And that is giving you a little bit of carbs right before you actually start your workout. So the idea of this is because it's been 2+ hours since you had a solid meal and any carbs, your body could probably use some before you actually work out. So getting a quick hit of it, like right before you start to warm up and train, can be helpful. And it's kind of counterintuitive because all of those things I mentioned are things that don't really make us feel that full, and they digest really quickly. And you probably don't think of Rice Krispie treats or sugary cereal or Pop Tarts as like quote unquote healthy, but it's going to help with your gym performance. And if all the rest of your foods throughout the day pretty much all look whole, fruit and vegetable, lean meats, healthy-ish, healthy food, quote unquote, then having a little bit of, a couple hundred calories worth of that fast digesting sugar right before you go and utilize it and work out, it's not going to be harmful for your health. It's going to be great for your performance, and you're going to feel good. Versus if you have like an apple or whole grain bread right before you work out, you're probably going to feel really bloated. You're going to feel gassy, maybe burpy. You're going to feel like that food is sitting in your stomach really heavy, digesting as you're working out, which doesn't feel good. So your pre-workout meal, if you're having it like 2 hours before or more before you work out, it can look the same as any other meal really, but just maybe make sure like, if your lunch or post-workout meal or your dinner, like maybe if you're in a fat loss phase, if it typically doesn't have too many carbs to it, maybe make your pre-workout meal, the one that you're having 2 hours or 3 hours before you work out, maybe a little bit more carb heavy compared to your other meals, just so have a little bit carbs going into there. But if you're having your like actual main meal, like first thing in the morning for breakfast, and you're not working out until 10 or 11, it would definitely be beneficial, if to have like some kind of quick hit, just like 200 calories worth, maybe 300 calories worth. I usually have about 350 calories worth of Pop Tarts before, like 30 minutes before I work out, and that's a great strategy. Because I don't like to work out when I feel really full, but also I know I shouldn't be working out with a completely empty stomach, or with like, it being 5 hours since I last had any carbs. So that's kind of like the approach you want to take with your pre-workout nutrition. If it's 2 hours before you work out or more, making that meal pretty much look like any other meal you would, but just with a little bit more carb heavy maybe than like, your meals later in the day. And then if you're going that long stretch before you work out and you're not having another solid meal in between there, then having like a quick hit of some kind of carbohydrate snack can be helpful. And then just monitoring how you feel during your workout with that. Like if you find, oh, like I feel like my blood sugar is kind of crashing or my energy is kind of crashing, maybe add in a little bit of, healthy fat, or maybe even a little bit of protein with that, and that might give you a little bit more sustained energy. But that's just kind of an adjustment like you have to make of trying something, seeing how you feel with it, and then either sticking to it if you feel really good, if you feel like your energy is still kind of crashing towards the end of your workout, even if you have a few Rice Krispie treats before you go in there, then maybe add like a little bit of peanut butter with it or something, or you get the gist of to kind of make that digestion a little bit slower and make that last a little longer. Next question is from Liz too. So she said, is it okay to use your rest in between sets to walk on the treadmill at a 2.5 to 3 mile per hour pace, or should you rest easily or really take that break? It helps me to get my steps in for the day. So pretty simple answer here. That's perfectly fine. If you're walking in between sets, it's great. Like if you're somebody who you really like want to prioritize your strength, like you're a power lifter or something, probably just sitting and resting between sets is probably a little bit better because you're just going to be a little bit more fresh for your actual set that you're going to do. But like assuming you're not a power lifter and assuming your big priority, number one, isn't necessarily strength, your big priority is health, changing your body composition, fat loss, then walking in between like those breaks is perfectly fine. And if it's going to help you to hit your step goal for the day, then that's even better. So great question. Last question now is from Andrea Polito. I hope I said that right. What is the best way to incorporate cardio into your weekly routine? I really like it both because I like endurance and it helps me clear my head. I'm usually doing 4 days of weights and 2 days of cardio, about 45 to 60 minutes on a stationary bike. Is that too much? Are there adjustments needed on calories, etc. for that? I'm currently in a priming phase. Thanks. So, great question. So I guess my overall gist of this is that you're doing the cardio for mental health benefits and maybe even like physical health benefits, and not necessarily because you think cardio is like magical for fat loss. Because you can achieve a great amount of fat loss without doing much cardio at all for a really long time. I have a lot of clients who are just lifting weights 3 to 4 days a week, and we just have like a step goal, and that's kind of their cardio. But we don't have any like planned cardio on a bike or elliptical or anything, and you can see tremendous fat loss. But it sounds like you're doing it for like the health benefits physically and also the mental health benefits, which is great. Cardio does have a lot of benefits for your heart health. So probably doing something that gets your heart rate up a little bit 1 to 2 times a week is probably really great for your overall health. And especially, for you in this instance, your mental health, because you enjoy it. I think 45 to 60 minutes twice a week is perfectly fine as long as you feel like you're recovering enough. Like if you're not feeling like you're going into your leg days with lower body with like really sore legs all the time, then you're probably fine. I probably would recommend doing those stationary bike days, not right before, like not the day before you do a lower body day. So if you're doing like lower body on Monday and lower body on Thursday, with like the 4-day split that's in the collective on the workout app, you probably don't want to be doing your bike days on Sundays and Wednesdays because now you're maybe fatiguing your legs a little bit the day before you're supposed to prioritize your strength training day. And then you're going to go into your strength training day a little bit fatigued, not being able to perform as well. And that could, hurt progress a little bit, but also it can increase the risk of injury too if you are feeling kind of sore and then you're kind of like not using good form because your soreness is there. So you're kind of like leaning over, doing some weird things with your body to overcompensate. So I probably would just be mindful of where I'm placing those. If I was going to do like the 4-day lifting split and do like Monday lower, Tuesday upper, Thursday lower, and Friday upper, I probably would put your 2 stationary bike days. I would either put them on the same day of your lower body day after you're lifting. That way, like you're prioritizing your lifting first and not doing the cardio and then going to lift after. Or I would do them on your upper body day. So that way you still have that day of rest in between upper and then your next lower. So you're not doing it straight back to back. Or what I would do is maybe do one of those cardio days on your upper body day. And then that second cardio day, maybe on Saturday, because Saturday is a day that you're not training if you're doing that split that I just kind of referred to. And then also you have Sunday to rest before you go into your lower body on Monday. And those are just ideal ways to put it together. Obviously you have to do what you have to do. And life sometimes doesn't accommodate the ideal circumstance. So, like if you end up doing some of your cardio days the day before you go and lift, as long as you know and are okay with the trade off that, hey, I might not feel as strong in my lifting day, and that's okay. I might feel a little sore because you're prioritizing the cardio a little bit more. That's okay. You just have to be aware of that trade off. So, what's optimal in like a perfect world sometimes isn't optimal in every given circumstance. So we have to be okay with those trade offs sometimes. Um, but any adjustments on calories, um, what to do with calories and any changes to do with that. So, not necessarily, because when you're calculating your calories for the week and making those adjustments and slowly increasing things week to week, like in the priming phase, you're making all of those adjustments based off of a rough estimated number that you put into this calculator, right? And also based on how your body weight and body is responding week to week. So just know that if you're doing extra cardio, that you might be able to bring your calories up a little bit higher at the end of your priming phase than what you maybe estimated before if you didn't kind of calculate your cardio amount in your maintenance calorie recommendation. As far as changing your calorie intake day to day, depending on your activity level, you can technically do that. Like if one day is a rest day, eat a little bit less than you do on your next day that's a workout day. But I think there are some downsides to that. One is that it makes things a little bit more confusing and you just have to like think about, oh, like my calorie goal is different on Monday than it is on Tuesday, and then Tuesday I'm doing my cardio and my lifting, so that's different than what it is on Wednesday and this and that. And it just gets a little bit confusing. And also another downside of that is that you just can't get into a good enough routine like with the foods you're eating. It's really helpful when you have like a set calorie range for almost every day. And that way you get into a routine of, okay, here's my breakfast, here's my lunch, here's my dinner. And these are foods or similar meals that I'm eating every single day. And you get into a routine versus having to always like adjust things and change things every day. It can make things more confusing there. And then also a third downside is even if it is a rest day and you had a really hard workout the previous day, your body still needs some extra fuel, even though it's not actively like being as active on that rest day. It's trying to recover from that really hard training day the previous day. And then also, a lot of the food that you eat on like today, Friday is when I'm recording this. A lot of the carbs I eat, especially in the evening, Friday, like tonight for dinner, they're going to fuel my workout for tomorrow. Like the fast digesting carbs we eat right before our workout kind of fuel our workout too. But a big part of our fuel for our workouts is what we eat the day before. And those carbohydrates, those starchy ones like potatoes and things that get stored in our muscles as glycogen. Those things fuel a lot of our workout performance for the next day. So if you're eating like way less on your rest days just because you're like, well, I'm not working out, so I don't need it. Um, you're limiting your recovery from your previous workout probably, and you're also limiting the amount of fuel you're storing up for your workout the next day. And I guess kind of a fourth caveat with this is that most people don't burn a ton of calories with like their actual workouts anyway. If you're doing like a 45-minute lifting workout, you might be burning like, I don't know, 150, maybe 200 extra calories. It's not that much. People think like their calorie intake should be like drastically different by like 500 or something on their rest days versus their workout days. But you're really not burning that much extra fuel in the actual workout. You burn a little bit more like sustained calories every day, just from the recovery process and everything that takes, from a lifting workout to fully recover from that usually takes about 72 hours. So your calorie burn is maybe a little bit elevated for 72 hours because it's trying to repair and recover all those tissues and everything from that last workout. So I think it's more simple to just look at your weekly average of what your weight's doing, look at how you're feeling on a weekly average basis as far as how lean you're feeling, looking at, how close we are to that calculated maintenance level, maybe realizing because you are doing a couple of extra days of cardio that your estimated maintenance level might be a little bit higher and you might be able to bring your priming phase calories up a little bit more than what you originally anticipated if you didn't already calculate it into like your activity factor when you did all those initial calculations. But I wouldn't, other than just thinking, okay, I might be able to bring my maintenance calories up a little bit higher, I wouldn't make any necessarily drastic changes just from an extra 45 minutes of cardio a day. If you were gonna like train for a marathon, and some days we're gonna be like you're running, um, 15 miles, and then other days you're completely resting, yeah, we probably want a difference in calorie intake then, because that's a pretty extreme difference between activity level. But the difference between like a 45 or 60-minute extra workout versus, not, isn't a huge difference in your calorie burn that day. And given all those other things, the recovery process and this fueling for the next day, makes more sense to just keep those things pretty stable. So I kind of answered this question, but kind of not. You asked if that was too much. 2 days of 45 to 60 minutes of cardio on a bike. Like I said, if you are recovering well and you're not overly mentally stressed trying to fit all of that in along with 4 lifting days, then that's completely fine. But if you are mentally stressed trying to fit all of that in, and you feel like you don't have the time to manage other areas of your life well, and you also feel like you're under recovered physically, like you're feeling beat up every time going into your workouts and feel like you're dragging every time, then maybe going down to 1 cardio day or going down to 3 lifting days might be a little bit more beneficial. We just want to make sure our recovery is good. We want to make sure that we're not overly killing ourselves psychologically with it. And but if we're kind of doing those things and obviously eating the appropriate amount of food for it, then like that's great. So hopefully these questions were really helpful. Appreciate you all. Remember, put those questions in the comments on the post or with the questions filter, and I will answer them each week. So that's about it, and I will see you guys in the next one.